Every moment in business happens only once. The next Bill Gates won't build an operating system. The next Mark Zuckerberg, well, he won't create a social network.
It's a really striking thought, isn't it?
It is, and this deep dive is all about understanding why that's true. And, maybe more importantly, how we can take that kind of unique thinking, that singular approach, and use it to build genuinely new, valuable things.
How to actually create something fresh.
Exactly. So today, we're diving into a pretty fascinating collection of insights. It's from 0 to 1, Notes on Startups, or How to Build the Future by Peter Thiel and Blake Masters.
And it's not just, a typical how-to for startups.
No, not at all. It feels much deeper. It's almost a meditation on the act of creation itself. It really pushes you to question a lot of assumptions about innovation.
Right. So our mission today really is to unpack that core philosophy. What's behind building something completely new, moving from what they call 0 to 1 instead of just, copying what's already out there, which is the 1 to N path.
Yeah.
We'll look at why thinking differently is so critical, maybe how we can learn from past mistakes like the dot-com bubble and the lessons we thought we learned from it. We'll dig into the maybe surprising power of monopolies and really think about what it takes to consciously design a future instead of just letting it unfold.
Okay, so we'll break down that difference between, say, incremental progress and truly groundbreaking tech.
Yeah, the 1 to N versus 0 to 1.
We'll look at those cautionary tales, the dogmas that came out of the dot-com crash, and then we'll tackle, head-on, some conventional wisdom about competition.
Which the book really challenges.
Definitely. And explore what it really means to design a valuable future. Not just for a company, but maybe for society, too. Yeah. It's going to make you question some things, I think.
For sure. It prompts a lot of rethinking about success and innovation. 1, the core philosophy. From 0 to 1.
All right, let's unpack this central idea first. The whole distinction between 0 to 1 and 1 to N. It sounds simple, but it underpins everything else.
It really does. So copying the 1 to N, that's taking something familiar, something that works, and just making more of it.
Like the typewriter example they use, you've got one, you make 100 more. That's progress, but it's horizontal progress. You're just replicating.
Exactly. But creating something genuinely new, like inventing the word processor when all you had was a typewriter, that is vertical progress. That's the 0 to 1 leap.
It's singular, it's fresh, and probably seems pretty weird at first to people.
Yeah, often does. It's pure creation. And the book really hammers this point because it argues that unless economies, companies, people actively invest in that kind of creation, doing something new, they risk stagnation. Doesn't matter what the profits look like right now.
So today's best practices could actually be a trap.
In a way, yeah. They're often just optimized versions of old paths, and those paths might lead to dead ends. The truly best paths, the new paths, are, by definition, untried.
Which makes you wonder, why do we default to copying so often when creation is supposedly so vital?
It's a good question. The authors suggest it's partly because copying feels safer, more predictable. But they also highlight that humans are unique. We don't just build instinctively. We invent. We can rewrite the plan for the world through technology.
And this connects to that really challenging interview question they kick off with, the one designed to find original thinkers.
Ah, yes. What important truth do very few people agree with you on?
It sounds simple, but it's tough to answer well.
It is on a couple of levels. Intellectually, it's hard because, everything we learn in school, our conventional understanding, is stuff that is widely agreed upon. That's what makes it conventional.
Right.
And psychologically, it's even tougher because you have to stand up and say something potentially unpopular, something that goes against the grain.
So a good answer isn't just a slight variation, it's contrarian.
Exactly. The book frames it like this. Most people believe in X, but the truth is the opposite of X. It's not just a job interview trick. It's a filter for genuinely independent, future-focused thinking. It looks for real insight.
So why should someone listening care about that question? Maybe they're not applying for a job at Thiel's fund.
Well, because the book argues that finding good answers to that question, that's the closest we get to actually seeing into the future. These answers represent unique perspectives, seeing things differently from how everyone else sees them now, and that's where new value creation starts.
Seeing opportunities others miss because they're stuck in the conventional view.
Precisely. And this ties into how we view progress itself. The book breaks it down into 2 types, horizontal and vertical.
Right, the 1 to N and 0 to 1 again?
Yeah, horizontal, the 1 to N, that's globalization, taking things that work somewhere and making them work everywhere else. China's rapid development over the last few decades is a huge example, essentially replicating Western infrastructure and tech.
Okay. Copying what's known to work.
Right. Vertical progress, the 0 to 1 leap, that's technology. And they define technology really broadly. Not just computers, but any new and better way of doing things.
A new method, a new process.
Anything fundamentally novel and better. Now, historically, we've had periods of both. But the book argues that since, say, the early 1970s, we've seen massive globalization, but maybe less groundbreaking technological development outside of IT.
Which leads to the author's own contrarian answer.
Yeah, his answer to his own question is basically, most people think globalization will define the future. But the truth is, technology matters more. Without new tech, just spreading current methods globally isn't sustainable.
The India example is powerful. If hundreds of millions live like Americans using today's energy tech,
It's catastrophic. Spreading old ways in a resource-constrained world just leads to devastation, not wealth for everyone. So it makes you ask, are we too focused on just spreading the current best practices instead of inventing fundamentally better ones?
it's a really provocative point, especially thinking back. The book talks about that period from the 1760s to around 1970. Incredible tech progress, wealth creation. People genuinely expected moon vacations.
They did. 4-day work weeks. It seemed like the natural trajectory. But it stalled in many areas. Our smartphones are amazing, sure, but look around buildings, transportation, energy. A lot of it feels strangely old, as they put it.
The challenge isn't just to expect a better future, but to actively create the technologies that make it possible.
Right, so who does that? Who makes the 0 to 1 leaps? The book argues it's small groups, bound by a mission. Startups.
Not big, established organizations.
Generally not. They're often too slow, too bureaucratic, too risk-averse because of entrenched interests. A startup, they say, is the largest group you can convince to join you on a plan to build a different future.
And their key strength isn't just size or speed.
It's new thinking. The space to think differently, to question assumptions, to rebuild from the ground up. The book itself is framed as an exercise in thinking, encouraging us, the readers, to do the same. 2, learning from the past. The dot-com bubble.
Okay, so making that leap, that 0 to 1 jump, isn't straightforward. And history, especially recent history, has lessons. But maybe we learned the wrong ones. Let's talk about the dot-com bubble.
Yeah, a major event whose shadow still looms large. The book quotes Nietzsche here. Madness is rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, nations, and ages, it is the rule. The lib-90s internet craze definitely fits that description.
The biggest bubble since 1929, they say. And the way we reacted to its bursting, it still distorts how we think about tech and risk.
Absolutely. It's amazing how quickly conventional wisdom flips. In the late 90s, things like page views were seriously considered more important financial metrics than, actual profit.
It sounds absurd now, but people genuinely believed it.
They did. The author mentions his own experience at PayPal during that time, feeling scared out of his wits by the sheer level of uncritical belief floating around. Acting rationally almost felt eccentric. People were losing money hand over fist, calling it an investment in some vaguely defined, huge future payoff.
And the global context played a role too, right? With crises elsewhere, the internet seemed like the only path forward.
Exactly. It became the new economy, the sole focus of hope.
PayPal's own story from that time is wild, starting with this grand vision.
A new internet currency to replace the dollar. Very ambitious.
But their first product, beaming money with Palm Pilots, total flop.
Right. So they pivot to email payments. But growth is slow, costs are mounting, they need users fast.
And advertising is too expensive.
So they make this incredibly bold, high-cost move. Literally paying people to sign up. $10 for joining, $10 for referrals.
Which sounds completely insane from today's perspective.
Well, yes and no. It led to exponential growth, which is the metric everyone cared about then. It was burning cash like crazy. But in the bubble context, it was seen as a sane, necessary investment to grab market share, hoping profitability would follow eventually from transaction fees. They raised $100 million in March 2000.
Right, as the bubble was peaking.
Precisely. They closed the round, and boom, the NASDAQ crashes. Talk about timing.
And the interpretation afterward wasn't just market correction, it was almost moral judgment.
Yeah, divine judgment against tech optimism, as the book puts it. Hope shifted away from technology and back towards globalization. The whole era was just painted as greed and delusion.
And from that crash, specific lessons emerged that became startup dogma.
Exactly. The book highlights 4 big ones.
Make only incremental advances. Big visions are dangerous.
Small steps only.
Second, Stay lean and flexible. Planning is bad. Just iterate. Treat it like an experiment.
Agnostic experimentation.
Third, improve on the competition. Don't invent. Just make existing things slightly better for existing customers.
Focus on recognized products.
And fourth, focus only on product, not sales. If it's good enough, it'll sell itself through viral growth. Advertising is a sign of weakness.
But the author flips these completely on their head.
He does. He argues the opposite principles are probably closer to the truth. Two really stand out.
It's better to risk boldness than triviality. Don't be afraid of grand visions just because the 90s bubble burst. And 2, competitive markets destroy profits. Trying to just improve on competitors is a losing game long term. You need to escape competition.
So for someone listening now, how much of our thinking about business, about careers even, is still unconsciously shaped by those potentially wrong lessons learned from the dot-com bust?
It's a crucial question. The book suggests the most contrarian act isn't just knee-jerk opposition to the crowd, but genuine independent thought, thinking for yourself.
And maybe, just maybe, that peak moment in March 2000, despite the madness, maybe there was a peak of clarity, too, a recognition of the need for new tech.
That's the provocative idea. Maybe we need a little bit of that 1999-style hubris and exuberance channeled correctly to actually build the future we want. 3, the monopoly advantage.
Okay, so if creating new value, that 0 to 1 is the goal, how do you make sure that value actually sticks? How do you build a sustainable business around it? The answer the book gives is, well, it's likely to raise some eyebrows.
It definitely challenges conventional wisdom.
It ties back to that contrarian question. The business version becomes, what valuable company is nobody building? Because, and this is key, just creating value isn't enough. You have to be able to capture some of it, too.
Right. The book uses this really stark comparison between U.S. airlines and Google. Airlines create enormous value, billions of dollars flying millions of people. But in 2012, their average profit was just 37 cents per passenger.
Barely anything.
Almost nothing. Google, meanwhile, had less revenue but kept 21% as profit. Its profit margin was over 100 times higher than the entire airline industry's. And today, Google's worth, what, 3 times more than all U.S. airlines combined?
Wow. So it forces you to ask, are you just building something that creates value for others, or is your business actually positioned to capture a decent slice of that value itself?
Exactly. And this leads directly to the controversial idea of monopoly.
Which immediately sounds bad, right? Competition good, monopoly bad. That's what we're taught.
It is. But the book reframes monopoly. It's not talking about an illegal bully or a government-protected entity. It defines it as a company that is just so good at what it does that no other company can offer a close substitute.
Like Google in search. Early on, they just blew everyone else away.
Precisely. That was a 0 to 1 monopoly. The argument is simple. Capitalism is about accumulating capital. But perfect competition, where everyone offers basically the same thing, drives profits down to 0 in the long run.
So if you want to create and capture lasting value,
you need to escape that cutthroat competition. Don't build an undifferentiated commodity business. Aim for a monopoly, in their sense of the word.
It's tricky, though, because the book also says people kind of lie about their market situation.
Yes. It's hard to get a clear picture because companies have incentives to misrepresent things. Monopolists don't want to be called monopolies. That invites regulation, scrutiny, unwanted attention.
So they downplay their dominance.
Right. They frame their market as broadly as possible. Google says, oh, we're not a search monopoly, we're in the global advertising market, where their share looks tiny. Or they say they're a multifaceted tech company, competing with everyone, making their slice seem insignificant.
Clever framing. And non-monopolists do the opposite.
Exactly. They tell the opposite lie. We're unique. We're in a league of our own. Entrepreneurs often do this by defining their market way too narrowly to make themselves look dominant.
Like the British restaurant example. We're the only British restaurant in Palo Alto.
Yeah, but your actual market is all restaurants in Palo Alto, or maybe even nearby towns. You're competing with Italian, Mexican, everything. Most new restaurants fail because they ignore that competitive reality.
So monopolists define their market as a big union of markets, while non-monopolists define theirs as a tiny intersection.
Well put. It's all about strategic framing. But beyond just profits, the book argues that competition itself is just brutal.
That restaurant example again. Low margins, minimum wage, constant pressure.
It drives people to desperation. Whereas a true monopoly, like Google, has breathing room. They don't have that existential daily threat. That gives them the latitude to actually care about employees, products, impact.
The don't be evil motto. may be only possible because of their monopoly profits.
That's the provocative suggestion. Can a business really focus on long-term vision and ethics if it's constantly scrambling to survive intense competition? It's a tough question.
So does this mean monopolies are actually good for society? That feels counterintuitive.
In a purely static world, no. They just collect rent.
Yeah.
But our world is dynamic, and the book argues creative monopolies are different. They don't just take. They create new categories of abundance.
Like Apple with the iPhone. It created a whole new market, offered more choice, not less.
Exactly. And governments even grant patents, which are temporary legal monopolies, precisely to incentivize that kind of invention. History shows that monopolies don't last forever anyway. Better monopolies come along and displace the old ones. Microsoft overtook IBM. Apple challenged Microsoft.
So monopolies can actually drive progress.
That's the argument. The promise of years of monopoly profits is a powerful incentive to innovate in the first place. And those profits then fund the ambitious long-term research that companies locked in competition just can't afford.
It reframes that Tolstoy quote.
Right. All happy companies are different. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. All failed companies are the same. They failed to escape competition. That's the core idea. Escaping competition isn't just a strategy, it's the defining characteristic of a successful business. 4. Escaping competition. The ideology of competition.
Okay, building on that, let's really dig into this idea of escaping competition. The book goes further than just economics. It calls competition an ideology that shapes our whole society.
Yeah, it argues we internalize this idea that competition is inherently good, necessary, virtuous. But the reality is, the more we compete, often the less we actually gain. We get locked into rivalries that distract us from creating something truly new. We're kind of trained for it from a young age, aren't we? School grades, rankings. Absolutely. The whole educational system often reinforces it. You compete for grades, for status, for spots in prestigious universities, and then for conventional high-status jobs like consulting or banking, where the competition is just incredibly fierce.
It traps talented people in these zero-sum games.
Exactly. And you have to wonder, are we just training people to compete really well within existing structures rather than teaching them how to think independently and build completely new structures? The author shares his own story about law school.
Right, competing for that Supreme Court clerkship.
He was crushed when he didn't get it. But looking back, he realized winning probably would have locked him into a career interpreting and applying existing rules rather than creating something entirely new. That line is striking. All Rhodes Scholars had a great future in their past.
Wow. It suggests that winning those conventional competitions can sometimes close off more creative paths.
It can. And the book uses this great analogy comparing business to war. Managers love that comparison.
Right. Strategy, tactics, defeating the enemy.
But the book flips it. It says competition, not business itself, is like war. Allegedly necessary, supposedly valiant, but ultimately destructive.
And it contrasts Marx and Shakespeare on conflict.
Yeah. Marx said people fight because they're different. Shakespeare showed people fighting precisely because they're similar. Think Romeo and Juliet, two families, basically identical in status, locked in a pointless, escalating feud where they've forgotten why they even started fighting.
And in business.
Shakespeare's the better guide, the book argues. Companies become obsessed with their rivals because they start looking alike. They lose sight of bigger goals and just focus on beating the other guy.
The Microsoft versus Google example illustrates that perfectly.
Right. They started in different spaces, OS versus search. But they grew obsessed with matching each other feature for feature. Windows versus Chrome OS, Bing versus Google Search.
A tech war.
Exactly. And while they were locked in that battle, focused on each other, Apple, coming from a different angle entirely, just leapfrogged both of them in value. It's a cautionary tale about getting sucked into rivalries based on sameness.
The book mentions other examples too, like the mobile payment readers.
Yeah, suddenly everyone had a similar Square reader. Or the online pet store wars. Pets.com versus Petstore.com, burning through hundreds of millions, fighting each other because they lacked real differentiation, forgetting to ask if the market itself was even viable.
So the lesson is, recognize competition for the destructive force it often is. Avoid it if you can, and if you must fight.
Strike hard and end it quickly. Don't get drawn into prolonged, pointless feuds like Hamlet fighting over a tiny patch of worthless land. That's disastrous in business. 5. Escaping competition. Last mover advantage.
Okay, so escaping competition leads towards monopoly. But just achieving that isn't enough. A truly great business has to last. It needs durability.
Absolutely. Yeah. The book uses that striking comparison again. Twitter going public, valued hugely despite losing money, versus the profitable New York Times, valued way lower.
What explains that difference?
Future cash flow. It sounds simple, but it's profound. The value of any business, fundamentally, is the sum of all the money it's expected to make over its entire future lifetime, discounted back to today's value.
Okay, so it's all about the long game.
Exactly. And this highlights a massive difference. Old economy businesses like newspapers might be profitable now, but their future cash flows are uncertain, maybe declining. Most of their value is near term.
Right.
Tech companies, especially successful startups, are the opposite. They often lose money initially. Why? Because they're investing heavily in growth and dominance, expecting huge profits far down the road. Most of their value comes from projections 10, 15, even 20 years out.
Like PayPal back in 2001, unprofitable but growing like crazy.
Yeah, and their valuation then implied that something like 75% of their worth was based on profits they wouldn't even start making for another decade. And even that turned out to be an underestimate.
So this focus on the distant future is critical, but maybe counterintuitive.
Very much so. Even in Silicon Valley, entrepreneurs can get obsessed with short-term metrics, weekly active users, monthly revenue growth.
Which seem important, right?
They are, but they can be a trap. The book points to companies like Zynga or Groupon. They had explosive short-term growth, which looked amazing. But it distracted everyone, managers, investors, from asking harder questions about their long-term sustainability. Did they have a durable competitive advantage?
So the key question isn't just how fast are we growing now, but
will this business still be around and thriving a decade or more from now? And you can't answer that just by looking at spreadsheets. You have to think critically, qualitatively about the characteristics of the business itself, what makes it durable.
And the book identifies 4 main characteristics that often contribute to that kind of enduring monopoly.
Right. Though it stresses every monopoly is unique, they often share some mix of these 4. Proprietary technology, network effects, economies of scale, and branding. Think of them less like a checklist and more like tools for analysis.
Okay, let's break this down. First, proprietary technology.
This is technology that makes your product fundamentally hard or even impossible for others to replicate, like Google's core search algorithms. The rule of thumb here is crucial. It needs to be at least 10 times better than the closest substitute on some key dimension.
10 times? That's a high bar.
It is. Anything less is just a marginal improvement, easily competed away. Think of PayPal making eBay payments instant versus waiting 7-10 days for a check that's a 10x improvement. Amazon offering vastly more books than any physical store.
Got it. Next, network effects.
This is when the product itself becomes more useful the more people use it.
Yeah.
Facebook is the classic example. It's not much fun if your friends aren't on it. But there's a paradox here. To get big network effects, you usually have to start really small. Facebook started with just Harvard students, trying to launch with a network effect that requires millions of users right away.
Yeah.
That usually fails.
Interesting. Okay, third, economies of scale.
This means the business gets inherently stronger and more cost-efficient as it gets bigger. The fixed costs get spread over more and more customers. Software is the ultimate example. The cost of making one more copy is virtually zero.
So it scales beautifully, unlike, say, a yoga studio where costs scale up pretty directly with size.
Exactly. Good startups designed for scale from the beginning.
And finally, branding.
A powerful brand can, in itself, create a perception of monopoly. Apple is the masterclass here. The design, the stores, the ads, the whole ecosystem makes people feel Apple products are in a class of their own.
But branding alone isn't enough.
No, it needs substance underneath. Apple also has proprietary tech, huge economies of scale in manufacturing, and strong network effects through its App Store and ecosystem. Trying to build a monopoly just on branding without the underlying strengths is really risky.
So having these characteristics helps, but how do you actually build a company that develops them? What's the strategy?
The strategy starts, counterintuitively perhaps, by starting small and monopolizing. Don't go after a huge market right away. Pick a very small market, one you can realistically dominate completely. Err on the side of too small.
Like PayPal focusing just on those eBay power sellers at first?
Precisely. They ignored the huge potential market of all online payments and focused intensely on this tiny group that desperately needed their specific solution. They dominated that niche first. The book warns against entrepreneurs who say, we'll get 1% of this massive $100 billion market. That's usually a recipe for failure because huge markets mean intense competition.
Okay, so dominate a small pond first. Then what?
Then you scale up gradually. Once you own that initial niche, carefully expand into adjacent, slightly broader markets. Amazon is the classic example again.
Books first.
Right, dominate books, then expand to similar media CDs, videos, then software. Step by step, leveraging the infrastructure and customer base, they move towards becoming the everything store.
It's a deliberate, staged expansion.
Very deliberate. And the book adds another piece of maybe controversial advice here. Don't disrupt.
That sounds like heresy in Silicon Valley. Isn't disruption the whole point?
Well, the term originally had a specific meaning, new tech, starting at the low end and eventually displacing incumbents. But now it's just a buzzword, often a sign of negative obsession. If your company defines itself primarily by opposition to existing players, you're probably not building something truly new, and you're likely inviting a fight.
Like Napster directly attacking the music industry.
Yeah, classic disruptor that ended up bankrupt. PayPal, conversely, tried not to directly challenge Visa. They aimed to expand the total payments market, creating value rather than just fighting over existing slices. Avoid competition whenever possible.
So, wrapping this section up, we often hear about first mover advantage, get there first.
Right. But the book argues that's just a tactic, not the ultimate goal. What really matters is generating those future cash flows for a long, long time.
So it's
much better to be the last mover, the one who makes the final defining improvement in a market and then enjoys decades of monopoly profits because no one can catch up.
And the path there is dominate a niche, scale thoughtfully, and have that long-term vision.
Exactly. Study the end game first. Know where you want to end up before you even start. 6, designing your future. You are not a lottery ticket.
This brings us to a really fundamental question about success itself. Is it just luck? Or is it something you can actually design and build through skill and effort?
It's a huge debate. You hear incredibly successful people, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, often crediting luck or fortunate circumstances. Malcolm Gladwell built a whole narrative around that idea.
Right, the lucky breaks theory.
But then you look at serial entrepreneurs. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey. People who have built multiple billion-dollar companies from scratch. If it were purely luck, like winning the lottery, these people shouldn't really exist. Statistics just don't work that way.
So the evidence seems contradictory.
It does. And settling it definitively is tough because every situation is unique. But the book shifts the focus slightly. It argues that historically, say from the Renaissance up until the mid-20th century, the prevailing view was different. Luck wasn't just something that happened to you, it was something you could influence, even master, through preparation and hard work.
Like Amundsen reaching the South Pole. Victory awaits him who has everything in order. Luck, people call it. Making your own luck.
Exactly. Prior generations seem to believe more in agency, in cause and effect. The book suggests that if you truly believe success is just random chance, then why bother learning about strategy or startups? It would be like studying lottery tickets.
So the more useful question isn't just luck versus skill, but how we view the future itself. Is it something we can shape, or is it just random?
Precisely. Do you see the future as definite, something understandable, something you can plan for and actively build? Or do you see it as indefinite, hazy, uncertain, basically random? The book argues this distinction explains a lot about our current world.
An indefinite attitude leads to, what? Focusing on process over substance.
Yeah. If you don't have a concrete plan for the future because you think it's unknowable, what do? You hedge. You collect options. You build a diverse resume, ready for, well, nothing in particular, as the book puts it. You focus on staying flexible rather than making bold commitments.
Whereas a definite view
favors conviction. You figure out the single best thing to do, the unique contribution you can make, and then you focus relentlessly on doing it. You strive to become, in a sense, a monopoly of one.
The book maps this onto optimism and pessimism, creating 4 worldviews.
Right. You have indefinite pessimism, kind of like modern Europe, maybe feeling the future is bleak but having no real plan, just muddling through. Definite pessimism, maybe like China believing the future is knowable, but likely harsh, so you prepare rigorously, often by copying what worked elsewhere. Then there's definite optimism. This was the dominant view in the West for centuries, up to the 1960s. The future will be better if we plan and work hard to make it so. This mindset built canals, railroads, skyscrapers, the interstate highway system, the Apollo program. Huge, ambitious, definite projects.
They had concrete visions and executed them.
Exactly. And finally, there's indefinite optimism. This, the book argues, has characterized America since the early 80s. The belief that the future will get better somehow, but without any specific blueprint. We just sort of expect progress to happen.
And this leads to certain career paths becoming dominant: finance, law, consulting.
Fields that are about rearranging existing value rather than creating new things. They attract smart, ambitious people, the optionality chasers, who prioritize keeping doors open over committing to building something specific and unique.
So this indefinite optimism shows up everywhere.
Pretty much. Indefinite finance is the ultimate example, making money without having a clear idea of how to actually create wealth in the real economy. Money just gets shuffled around, diversified, managed, but is it building anything new?
And politics.
Indefinite politics focuses on short-term polls, tailoring messages, managing perceptions, rather than articulating and pursuing bold, long-term visions. Government becomes about providing insurance, Social Security, Medicare, rather than coordinating complex future-building projects.
Even philosophy and approaches to life itself.
Yeah, indefinite life sees things like aging and death as inevitable, random processes to be managed, not fundamental problems to be solved through definite scientific breakthroughs. Drug discovery relies more on random screening than on deep, definite theories of biology.
Can this indefinite optimism actually work long-term? If nobody's making concrete plans, if companies are hoarding cash instead of investing in ambitious new projects, how does the future actually get better?
That's the critical question the book raises. The conventional answer often invoked is evolution.
Like Darwin, applying natural selection to business.
Exactly. You hear buzzwords like lean startup, iterate, adapt, pivot. The idea is that progress happens through small, random changes and competitive selection. Make a minimum viable product, see what happens, adjust.
But the book pushes back hard against that.
Very hard. It argues leanness is just a methodology, not a goal in itself. Small incremental changes might lead you to a local peak, but they won't get you that 0-to-1 breakthrough. Iteration without a bold, definite plan is insufficient. For building something truly new, the book insists intelligent design works best.
So it's a call to prioritize deliberate design over randomness and chance.
Yes. And design here isn't just about aesthetics, though that matters. Steve Jobs was obsessed with the look and feel of Apple products, sure, but his greatest design, the book argues, was the Apple business itself.
The multi-year plans, the integration, the strategy.
Exactly. Apple imagined and executed definite multi-year plans. They didn't rely on focus groups or random iteration to create the iPod or iPhone. Jobs had a definite secret plan for where these devices would lead.
And that long-term, definite vision is often undervalued.
Massively undervalued in a world obsessed with short-term results and indefinite futures. When Mark Zuckerberg turned down Yahoo's $1 billion offer for Facebook in 2006, it seemed crazy to many. But he had a definite plan. A business with a good, definite plan is likely underrated.
So the conclusion here is powerful. You are not a lottery ticket.
Right. We need to reclaim that sense of agency, that belief in a definite future we can build. A startup, then, becomes more than just a business. It's the largest arena where you can exercise definite mastery, shaping a small but important part of the world according to a unique plan. It starts by rejecting the tyranny of chance. 7. Follow the money.
Okay, so we need definite plans, we need unique visions, but how do we identify where the real potential lies? Where should we focus our efforts? The book suggests we should follow the money, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. It leads to this concept of the power law.
Right. It starts with that old adage, money makes money, or the biblical quote, for whoever has will be given more. Compound interest, the eighth wonder. These point to a deeper pattern. Small inputs or minorities often produce vastly disproportionate results.
The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Exactly. Pareto noticed 20% of the people owned 80% of the land. It turns out this pattern, a small few radically outstripping all rivals, is incredibly common. The biggest cities are vastly larger than all the small towns combined. A few blockbuster movies make most of the industry's profit. And in business, monopoly companies capture far more value than millions of perfectly competitive ones.
This is the power law.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's so fundamental, so pervasive, that we often don't even see it. We tend to think in terms of normal distributions, bell curves, where most things cluster around the average. But the world, especially in areas of creation and value, often follows a power law, where a tiny number of things are exponentially more impactful than all the rest.
And this becomes crystal clear when you look at venture capital.
Absolutely. VCs invest in risky early-stage companies, hoping a few will become massively valuable. They pool money, make bets.
But most of those bets fail.
Right. So you might think the best strategy is diversification, spread your bets widely, spray and pray. But the book argues this is precisely the wrong approach because venture returns don't follow a normal distribution. They follow a power law.
Meaning?
Meaning a tiny handful of investments in a successful fund will generate returns so enormous they dwarf everything else combined. Focusing on diversification means you're likely to dilute your investment in those potential mega hits. You'll miss the very companies that drive all the returns.
They give the Founders Fund example.
Yeah. Their investment in Facebook in their 2005 fund returned more money than all their other investments in that fund put together. Palantir, the second best, returned more than all the others except Facebook. This isn't unusual, it's a norm for successful funds. The biggest secret in venture capital, the book says, is that the single best investment often equals or outperforms the entire rest of the fund.
Wow, so that implies a really strict investment rule for VCs.
Two strange rules, actually. First, only invest in companies that have the potential to return the value of the entire fund by themselves.
That eliminates almost everything.
It does. It's incredibly restrictive. The Andreessen Horowitz investment in Instagram is a good example. They made 312 times their money. Phenomenal. But for their huge $1.5 billion fund, that $78 million return wasn't nearly enough on its own. They'd need 19 Instagram-level successes just to break even.
So rule number 1 is incredibly demanding. What's rule number 2?
Because rule number 1 is so restrictive, there can't be any other rules. You have to be laser-focused on finding those few companies with truly exponential potential and back them with everything you've got. Thinking of it like a lottery where you expect most tickets to lose is psychologically preparing for failure.
Why don't people, even VCs, always see this power law clearly?
Well, partly because it takes time to play out. Early on, many startups look similar. It's hard to tell which ones have that truly exponential trajectory versus just linear growth. The divergence takes years.
And day to day, VCs are busy with lots of companies.
Right. They spend a lot of time dealing with problematic companies, the ones not taking off. The single runaway success often requires less active management later on. So their daily experience doesn't always reflect the final power law distribution of the portfolio.
It's kind of hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. And it's not just VCs. This power law matters for everyone because, as the book says, everybody is an investor.
We invest our time, our careers.
Right. An entrepreneur invests years of their life. An individual makes huge investments in choosing a career path, betting it will be valuable decades later. But the common advice is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Which sounds sensible.
But it might be wrong, according to power law thinking. VCs who get it make as few investments as possible, concentrating their bets. The book argues life is not a portfolio. You can't diversify yourself across dozens of simultaneous careers.
Our education system pushes the opposite, though. Broad, generic knowledge, keeping options open.
Total opposite. It trains us for a world that doesn't exist, the book argues. It does matter what you do. You should focus relentlessly, find something you're uniquely good at that you believe will be incredibly valuable in the future, and double down on that.
So for startups, this means?
It means think twice before starting your own company if you have the chance to join one of the very, very best that's already on a rocket trajectory. Owning a tiny fraction of a Google or a Facebook can be vastly more valuable than owning 100% of a company that never takes off.
And if you do start one?
Operate it with the power law in mind. One market will likely be dominant. One distribution channel will vastly outperform others. A few key decisions will have disproportionate impact. Find what matters most, which might be non-obvious, maybe even a secret, and focus relentlessly on that.
8, finding and building. Building with secrets.
Okay, so the power law tells us to focus on the few things that really matter, the things with exponential potential. But how do you find those things? Where do these unique high potential opportunities come from? The book argues they come from secrets. Not necessarily classified information, but important truths that are not widely known or accepted. Every great idea we take for granted now, like Pythagoras' theorem, was once a secret, hidden knowledge waiting to be uncovered.
So, contrarian thinking, finding those truths few agree on, only makes sense if there are actually secrets still out there to be found.
Exactly. And the book draws a useful distinction here between mystery, something fundamentally unknowable, maybe like predicting the exact moment of the Big Bang, and secrets, something that's difficult to figure out, but ultimately doable.
Like curing a disease or finding a new energy source.
Right, or finding the answer to that business contrarian question, what valuable company is nobody building? The answer to that is always a secret, something important and unknown, something hard to do but doable. If secrets like that exist, then there are still countless world-changing companies waiting to be started.
But why does it feel like most people act as if there aren't any secrets left? Like all the big discoveries have been made?
It's a concerning trend. The book mentions the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, who argued modern people are depressed because all the hard problems are solved, leaving only easy ones or impossible mysteries. His insane solution was to destroy everything so people could start over.
A very extreme view.
Extremely. But it points to a real phenomenon, a kind of loss of faith in the technological frontier. You see hints of it, the book suggests, in things like urban hipsterdom, the obsession with faux vintage, vinyl records, almost a performance of being allergic to grand achievement, as if everything worth doing has already been done.
Are there specific reasons for this loss of belief in secrets?
The book identifies 4 social trends that contribute. First, incrementalism. We're trained from school onwards to take tiny, safe steps. Get an A by doing exactly what's asked. This rewards conformity, not bold exploration.
Okay.
Second, risk aversion. People are terrified of being wrong. Secrets, by definition, aren't validated by the crowd yet. Being lonely but right is hard enough. Being lonely and wrong feels unbearable to most.
Complacency, too.
Third, complacency, especially among elites. If you're comfortable, why rock the boat, searching for difficult, unconventional truths? It's easier to just collect rent on what already exists.
And finally, flatness.
Fourth, flatness. The idea, fueled by globalization, that the world is one big competitive marketplace. If a secret existed, surely someone else in that vast global talent pool would have found it already. It breeds a kind of fatalism.
So these trends combine to create a world where we've sort of given up our sense of wonder at secrets left to be discovered.
That's the concern. We mistake the absence of known secrets for the absence of secrets altogether. This leads to misplaced faith in things like efficient markets, even when bubbles clearly show markets can be wildly wrong about value.
The Hewlett-Packard example is sobering here.
It is. A company built on relentless invention that then just stopped. They adopted invent as a slogan while ceasing to actually invent, focusing instead on mergers and consulting. They lost the belief in technological secrets, and their value collapsed. The lesson is stark. You can't find secrets if you don't even look for them.
Like Andrew Wiles spending years in secret proving Fermat's last theorem, something most thought impossible. He needed that faith in secrets.
Absolutely. And the book insists there are still countless secrets out there in science, medicine, engineering, technology. We could cure cancer, find new energy sources, travel faster. But we will never learn any of these secrets unless we demand to know them and force ourselves to look.
And this applies just as much to business secrets, finding those non-obvious opportunities.
For sure. Great companies are often built on open but unsuspected secrets about how the world works. Think about Airbnb. The components existed: empty rooms, people needing places to stay. But Airbnb saw a hidden truth about trust and untapped supply where others didn't.
Or Lyft and Uber seeing a new way to connect drivers and riders.
Exactly. These ideas seem almost simple in retrospect, which is actually an argument for secrets. If they were obvious, they'd have been done already. Their initial non-obviousness suggests many more great companies built on other hidden truths are still possible.
So how do you go about finding these secrets? Where do you look?
The book suggests 2 main types: secrets of nature, undiscovered aspects of the physical world, and secrets about people, things people don't know about themselves or things they hide because they're unpopular or taboo.
Secrets about people might be undervalued.
Relatively, yes. Studying physics seems obviously important. Studying why people behave irrationally in markets or what they're not allowed to say in public might be just as fruitful, but less explored. The best place to look for secrets is where no one else is looking.
Avoid the crowded fields taught in school, which focus on conventional wisdom.
Right. Look for fields that matter but aren't fully mapped or institutionalized. The nutrition example again. Clearly important, yet full of flawed studies and conventional wisdom that might be wrong. That's fertile ground.
Okay, so you find a secret. What do you do with it? Shout it from the rooftops.
Probably not. Unless you have perfectly conventional beliefs, it's rarely a good idea to tell everybody everything that you know. Secrets are powerful but also dangerous if revealed too broadly too soon.
So what's the middle ground?
A company. Every great business is built around a secret that's hidden from the outside. A great company is a conspiracy to change the world. When you share your secret, the recipient becomes a fellow conspirator. It's a way to operationalize a secret with a trusted group.
Taking those hidden paths, like Tolkien wrote.
Exactly. Towards the moon or the sun. 9, foundations.
Okay, so you have a secret, a unique insight, and you've gathered your initial conspirators. This brings us right to the very beginning, the absolute foundation of the company. And the book is emphatic about this.
Oh, yeah. Thiel's law, as it's sometimes called. A startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. It sounds harsh, but the point is the very beginning is uniquely important. It sets the trajectory.
Like the first moments of the universe setting the laws of physics, or the U.S. Constitution setting fundamental rules that are hard to change later.
Exactly. Those initial decisions, who the co-founders are, who the first hires are, how ownership is structured, they have an outsized, almost irreversible impact. Getting those first things right isn't just important, it's arguably the most important job of a founder. You can't build a great house on shaky ground.
And the very first decision is often choosing a co-founder. The book compares it to marriage.
And warns that founder conflict is as messy as divorce, often destroying the company in the process. Initial excitement can blind people.
So compatibility is key.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
The author shares a story of investing in a company where the co-founders barely knew each other, met at a networking event. It blew up spectacularly.
His takeaway.
Founders really need a shared prehistory. They need to know each other well, understand how they work together under pressure.
Skills matter, but the relationship matters just as much.
At least as much. But beyond just the people, the structure needs to be right from the start to keep everyone aligned. The book talks about separating ownership, possession, and control.
Okay, break that down.
Ownership is legal equity, who owns the shares. Founders, employees, investors. Possession is who actually runs the thing day to day. The managers and employees doing the work. And control is who formally governs it, typically the board of directors.
And problems arise when these are misaligned.
Big time. Think of a dysfunctional bureaucracy, like the DMV example they use. Citizens technically own it, politicians control it via oversight, but the clerks often have the real day-to-day possession of power, accountable to almost no one. Misalignment breeds inefficiency and conflict.
And in startups?
Founders usually start with ownership and possession. The big conflicts often emerge later between ownership, founders' employees, and control the board, especially investors whose interests might diverge over time.
Which is why the board structure is so critical early on.
Yes, and the advice here is stark. Less is more. Keep the board incredibly small. 3 is ideal for a private company, never more than 5. Larger boards become unwieldy, diffuse responsibility, and just one difficult director can cause huge problems down the line.
Okay, small board. What about the team itself? Who should be involved?
The rule here is also pretty blunt. Everyone involved should be full-time, period. Anyone working part-time or as a consultant or even remotely, the book argues strongly against remote work, especially early on, is likely fundamentally misaligned.
Why misaligned?
Because they're not fully committed in the same way. Their incentives aren't purely tied to the long-term success of this specific venture. They might be optimizing for other things. It creates friction. You need everyone fully invested rowing in the same direction. You're either on the bus or off the bus.
What about compensation? How do you align incentives there, especially for the CEO?
People need to be paid fairly, obviously, but the book makes another provocative claim. A company does better the less it pays the CEO, at least in the early stages.
Really?
The suggestion is that a high salary, say over 150 times for an early venture-backed CEO, incentivizes the CEO to maintain the status quo, to protect their comfortable position. A lower salary keeps them focused on increasing the company's value because that's where their real upside is. Cash is about the present. Equity is about the future.
Like Aaron Levy at Box living frugally early on, it sets a tone.
Exactly. High cash salaries can subtly teach employees to focus on extracting value now rather than investing their time and energy to create new value for the future.
So equity is the key alignment tool.
It's presented as the best tool, yes. It gives people part ownership, directly tying their fortunes to the company's long-term success.
But allocating it is tricky. Equal shares seems fair but ignores different contributions. Unequal shares can breed resentment.
It's incredibly difficult. There's no perfect formula. Resentment over equity is a common startup killer. That's why the book also recommends keeping the specific details of individual equity stakes confidential within the company. Transparency here can be destructive.
But fundamentally, equity works because
most people don't actually want it over cash. It's illiquid, risky, tied to one outcome. So the people who do prefer equity signal something important. They have a preference for the long term and a genuine commitment to building the company's future value. That self-selection helps align the team.
So getting these foundations right, The team, the structure, the incentives allows the company to keep creating, to extend that initial founding moment.
That's the idea. As Bob Dylan said, he who's not busy being born is busy dying. The founding isn't just a point in time. It's a state of continuous creation. Getting the foundation right is what enables a company to potentially maintain that state, to keep innovating, extend its founding indefinitely. 10. Building a cohesive team and distributing effectively. The mechanics of mafia.
Okay, we've laid the foundation. Now let's talk about the actual team, the culture. What makes a startup team really click? Is it the perks, the beanbags, the free food?
The book dismisses those perks as largely superficial. Fun, maybe, but not the core of culture. It argues company culture isn't something separate from the company. Every company is a culture. A startup, at its heart, is a team united by a shared mission. The culture is just what that looks like in practice.
They use the PayPal mafia as an example.
Right. That group of early PayPal employees who went on to found numerous other billion-dollar companies, Tesla, LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp. The argument is that the original PayPal culture was so strong, so formative, that it transcended the company itself.
What made it so strong? It wasn't just about being professional, was it?
No, the author contrasts it with his experience at a law firm, where relationships felt oddly thin, purely transactional. He questions the logic of spending most of your waking hours with people you don't particularly like or connect with deeply. At PayPal, they actively tried to hire people who would genuinely enjoy working together, who were excited to work specifically with that group.
Building real bonds, not just professional ones.
Exactly. Which leads directly to recruiting. This isn't something you can outsource. It's a core function. You need to find people who fit that specific culture and mission.
And the key question isn't just, are you smart, but something more specific.
Right. Especially once you get past the first few hires. The crucial question becomes, why should the 20th employee join your company?
And generic answers don't cut it. Good stock options, smart colleagues.
Every company claims those. Bad answers. Good answers have to be specific to your company's unique appeal. What is your mission, and why is it compelling and unique? Something only this team can achieve, like PayPal's original vision for a new currency. And why is this company a unique fit for this specific person and their talents?
So don't get sucked into the perk wars. Focus on the mission and the team fit.
Exactly. Promise challenging, irreplaceable work on a unique problem alongside people they'll genuinely connect with. That's far more compelling long-term than free laundry.
The book also observes that visual conformity, like everyone wearing the company t-shirt.
Yeah, the hoodies and t-shirts common in Silicon Valley. It might seem superficial, but it signifies something deeper. A tribe of like-minded people fiercely devoted to the company's mission.
A shared identity.
And often, a shared worldview. Max Levchin at PayPal mentioned they deliberately hired the same kind of nerd early on, people who loved sci-fi, who were obsessed with the potential of digital currency. That shared background allowed them to communicate and work together incredibly efficiently.
So external similarity, but internal differentiation.
Precisely. While the team shares a mission and maybe a worldview, internally, each individual needs to be sharply defined by their specific role. The author mentions his practice at PayPal, making every person in the company responsible for doing just one thing.
One clear responsibility.
Yes, it simplifies management, sure, but more importantly, it minimizes conflict. Most internal fights, the book argues, happen when people compete for the same turf, same responsibilities. Defining roles clearly prevents that. Internal competition is deadly. It's like an autoimmune disease for a startup.
This leads to the provocative comparison with cults.
Yes. It notes that intense organizations, including cults, often have members who are deeply bonded, spend all their time together, share esoteric beliefs. From the outside, it looks weird, maybe crazy.
But entrepreneurs should.
Take that level of dedication seriously. The book suggests the best startups might be considered slightly less extreme kinds of cults. The crucial difference. Cults are fanatically wrong about something important. Successful startups are fanatically right about something important that outsiders have missed.
So being called a cult or even a mafia might actually be a sign you're doing something right, building that intense shared commitment.
It could be. It signals a level of cohesion and focus that's often necessary for achieving ambitious goals. 11. Building a cohesive team and distributing effectively. If you build it, will they come?
All right, you've got the mission, the team, the culture, you've built something amazing, but will anyone actually buy it? This brings us to distribution and sales.
Which the book argues is massively underrated, especially by technical founders in Silicon Valley. There's this romantic field of dreams notion. If you build it, they will come.
Just make a great product and customers will magically find it.
It's a comforting fantasy for engineers who prefer building to selling, but it's usually just that, a fantasy. Customers don't appear out of thin air. Getting your product to them, selling it, distributing it, that's absolutely critical and much harder than it often looks.
We tend to have this bias against sales and marketing, don't we? Seeing it as superficial, maybe even deceptive?
Definitely. Technical people often see their work as the real work complex, difficult. Sales and marketing can seem like fluff. But the book points out advertising works, even on skeptical engineers. It plants seeds, creates familiarity, builds brands subtly over time, and good sales takes immense skill. It takes hard work to make sales look easy.
We only notice the bad salespeople.
Exactly. The pushy, obvious ones give the profession a bad name. The truly great salespeople, the grandmasters, like Tom Sawyer, getting others to whitewash the fence for him, are often hidden in plain sight. Their persuasion is subtle.
And sales is often disguised with other titles.
All the time. Account executives, business development, investment bankers, even politicians. They're all selling something. We just don't like to be reminded we're being sold to.
So that engineer's dream, the product that sells itself.
It's a dangerous myth. The best product doesn't always win. Distribution isn't an afterthought. It needs to be considered as part of the product design from the beginning. A brilliant invention with no viable way to sell it is simply a bad business.
Okay, so distribution is crucial. How do you figure out the right way to do it?
The book argues that superior distribution alone can even create a monopoly, even if the product isn't hugely differentiated. The key is finding a channel that works economically. The lifetime value of a customer, CLV, has to be significantly higher than the cost of acquiring that customer.
Makes sense. And the right method depends on the price point.
Generally, yes. Higher price allows for more expensive, hands-on sales methods. And the book outlines a kind of spectrum. At the very top, complex sales, multi-million-dollar deals. Think SpaceX selling rocket launches to NASA. Requires intense long-term relationship building, often CEO to CEO.
Okay.
Then personal sales. Deals may be in the $10K to $100K range. You need a dedicated sales team with a repeatable process. Think enterprise software. Box started here, selling to small departments before landing bigger deals.
Then there's a tricky middle ground.
Yeah, the distribution doldrums are the dead zone. Products may be around $1,000. Too cheap for personal sales teams to be economical, but too expensive or niche for broad advertising to work well. Many businesses get stuck here.
Love that.
Marketing and advertising. For lower-priced products with mass appeal where viral growth isn't built in, think consumer goods like laundry detergent, or maybe Warby Parker using TV ads for $100 glasses. But startups need to be careful not to try and outspend big incumbents here.
And finally, the holy grail for many startups.
Viral marketing, where the product itself encourages users to bring in more users. Facebook, Dropbox, PayPal's early growth. If each user brings in more than one new user on average, you get exponential growth, potentially very cheaply and quickly.
But the key insight here is about focus, right? The power law applies again.
Absolutely. Just like one market or one technology might dominate, the book argues that for any given business, one distribution channel is likely to be vastly more effective than all the others combined. Distribution follows a power law of its own.
So trying to dabble in everything, a few salespeople, some online ads, hoping for virality.
That kitchen sink approach usually fails. Most businesses get zero distribution channels to work, the book states bluntly. Failure is more often due to poor distribution than a bad product. The goal is to find the one channel that works powerfully for your specific business and then master it. If you nail one, you've likely got a great business. If you try several and don't dominate any, you're probably finished.
And selling isn't just about customers.
No, you're constantly selling your company to potential employees, to investors. That requires deliberate effort too. Even selling to the media, getting good PR, is crucial for attracting talent and capital.
So, at the end of the day,
everybody sells. Nerds might wish that distribution could be ignored, but it can't be. Everyone involved in a company is, in some way, contributing to selling its vision, its product, its future.
Look around. If you don't see any salespeople, you're the salesperson. Powerful closing thought for that section. 12. Man and machine. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about technology itself, specifically information technology. It's advanced so incredibly fast, it often seems like the only kind of technology progressing rapidly. We've got supercomputers in our pockets.
Moore's law marching on. And computers are increasingly capable of tasks we used to think were uniquely human. Chess, Jeopardy. driving cars.
Which leads to this anxiety, right? Will machines replace us? You hear prominent tech figures talking about software eating the world, or the goal being getting rid of people for productivity.
It's a common narrative. But the book argues this premise, that better computers inevitably mean human obsolescence, is fundamentally wrong.
How so?
It argues computers are primarily complements for humans, not substitutes. The most valuable businesses won't be built on replacing people, but on empowering them, augmenting their abilities.
Okay, explain that substitution versus complementarity distinction.
Think about globalization first. When a U.S. factory worker competes with a worker overseas doing the same repetitive task for lower wages, that's substitution. One human replaces another. They also compete for the same resources.
Right.
Technology, especially computing, is different. Computers and humans excel at different things. We have intentionality, we understand context, we make complex judgments. Computers are phenomenal at processing vast amounts of data efficiently, but they lack that deeper understanding.
The cat example from the book is great here.
Yeah, a massive Google supercomputer needed 10 million YouTube thumbnails to learn to identify cats with only 75% accuracy. A 4-year-old human does it almost perfectly, instantly. It shows we're not just stronger or weaker, we're categorically different.
So technology complements our weaknesses, and we complement its weaknesses.
Exactly. The gains from working with computers are potentially much higher than the gains from just trading with other humans who do the same things. Computers are tools. They don't compete with us for resources. In a globalizing world, technology offers a way to escape that direct, substitutive competition. As computers get even better, they'll become even better complements.
And this complementarity is where the business opportunities lie.
That's the argument. PayPal's experience with fraud is the key example. They were losing millions a month. They tried a fully automated solution, but the criminals just adapted too quickly.
The machines couldn't keep up alone.
No. So Max Lifton's team built a hybrid system. Software flagged suspicious activity, but human analysts made the final call using their judgment. This Igor system slashed fraud and led to PayPal's first profit. It combined the computer's data processing power with human intuition.
And this led directly to Palantir.
Yes. The author co-founded Palantir to apply that same human-computer hybrid model to bigger problems: intelligence analysis, financial fraud. Palantir software helps human analysts make sense of complex data, leading to breakthroughs like tracking terrorist financing or predicting IED locations. It's not AI replacing analysts, it's AI empowering analysts.
Does this apply beyond spies and fraud detection?
Absolutely. Think about doctors, lawyers, teachers. Computers can handle massive amounts of information diagnostics, research, freeing up the professionals to focus on the human elements: judgment, communication, tailoring solutions to individuals. LinkedIn is another example. It didn't replace recruiters, give them superpowers.
So why the persistent focus on replacement, on substitution, in tech circles?
Part of it is how computer science is often taught, breaking problems down into tasks computers can solve, implicitly aiming to automate human effort. And buzzwords reinforce it.
Like machine learning.
Yeah, the term itself sounds like replacement. Or big data, this idea that data alone holds the answers. But often it's just dumb data, without human analysts to interpret it, find the signal in the noise, and make it actionable.
We get dazzled by the tech itself.
We exoticize technology, as the book puts it. We're impressed when a computer does something slightly human-like, but we overlook the massive gains from humans and computers working together. The key question for future valuable companies isn't what can computers do alone, but how can computers help humans solve really hard problems?
What about the ultimate substitution fear, strong AI, sentient machines surpassing human intelligence?
The book acknowledges the possibility, but frames it as a very distant, maybe 22nd century worry. It argues that vague, indefinite fears about the far future shouldn't paralyze us from making definite plans to build a better world now. For the foreseeable future, computers will be powerful tools, complements helping us achieve things we couldn't imagine before. 13. Seeing green, the clean tech bubble.
Let's apply some of these principles to another major tech wave that didn't quite pan out as expected: clean tech. Early 2000s, it was hyped as the next massive thing.
Oh, absolutely. You had the visible problems: smog, pollution, climate change warnings becoming more urgent. Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth galvanized public opinion. Billions in venture capital poured in. It felt like an imperative.
But the results were pretty disastrous overall.
Yeah. Instead of a green revolution, we got a massive clean tech bubble.
Yeah.
Solyndra became the poster child for failure, but dozens of solar companies went bankrupt just in 2012. The whole sector deflated dramatically. So the big question is, why? The need was undeniable. Why did so many companies fail?
The book argues it comes back to those fundamental business questions. They neglected the basics.
Exactly. It revisits those 7 key questions: engineering, timing, monopoly, people, distribution, durability, secret, and argues most clean tech companies failed on multiple fronts. They were essentially hoping for a miracle because the underlying business fundamentals weren't sound.
Let's run through a few examples. Engineering.
Often the tech just wasn't that much better. Maybe incremental improvements, but rarely that 10x leap needed to overcome the inertia of existing energy systems. Solinder's tech was actually less efficient in real-world terms. Lab breakthroughs didn't translate.
Timing. They thought the time was right.
They convinced themselves it was, often drawing flawed analogies like comparing solar's slow linear progress since the 50s to the exponential curve of microprocessors. The market wasn't truly ready for liftoff in the mid-2000s from a tech perspective.
Monopoly. Did they carve out defensible niches?
Mostly, no. They were seduced by the sheer size of the trillion-dollar energy market. But huge markets mean brutal competition. They failed to start small, dominate a specific niche, and build from there. They tried to boil the ocean.
What about the teams, the people?
This is a harsh critique in the book. It describes many clean tech teams as shockingly non-technical. Lots of salesman executives who were great at raising money and getting government subsidies, but bad at actually building complex products.
The suits versus T-shirts observation.
Yeah, Thiel's rule. Never invest in a tech CEO that wears a suit. A provocative generalization, maybe, but pointing to a cultural mismatch, finance and policy people trying to run deep engineering ventures.
Distribution. Did they connect with customer?
Often no. They focused on governments and investors. Better Place, the EV battery swapping company, is a key example. Raised almost $1 billion, built the tech, but fundamentally misunderstood customer needs and adoption hurdles. Sold only 1,000 cars.
Durability. Did they plan for the long term? Seemingly not. They didn't have a strong answer to what stops China from copying this and undercutting you. Many blamed Chinese competition when they failed, and they were blindsided by unexpected shifts, like the fracking boom dramatically lowering natural gas prices.
And finally, secret. Did they have a unique insight?
Mostly, no. They justified themselves based on the conventional truth that the world needed cleaner energy. But a widely acknowledged social need doesn't automatically translate into a unique business opportunity. Great companies, the book argues, are built on secrets, specific reasons for success others don't see. Clean tech mostly offer variations on commonly accepted ideas.
So clean tech became a prime example of failed social entrepreneurship.
That's how the book frames it. The idea of doing well by doing good sounds appealing, but it often leads to compromises. Trying to serve both social goals and profit motives can result in conventional, undifferentiated products because you're appealing to what society already agrees is good, rather than pursuing a unique, potentially unpopular secret. Real progress often comes from tackling problems others aren't even looking at. But amidst all this failure, there was one notable clean tech success: Tesla.
Right. And the book argues Tesla succeeded precisely because it did get those 7 questions right, even while benefiting from the general clean tech buzz.
So Tesla's technology was genuinely superior.
Yes, particularly in integration. They created a product, the Model S, that wasn't just a good electric car. Reviewers called it one of the best cars, period. Other companies even used Tesla components.
Timing.
Musk perfectly timed his approach for government loans, getting a crucial $465 million before the Solyndra scandal made such funding politically toxic.
Monopoly.
They started with a tiny, defensible niche. Very expensive electric sports cars for wealthy early adopters. Dominate that first, then expand to luxury sedans, and now broader markets. Classic niche strategy.
Team.
Led by Musk, described as a unique blend of engineer and salesman with a highly dedicated elite team.
Distribution.
They took control of their own distribution stores, service centers, higher upfront cost, but crucial for controlling the customer experience and brand. Significant head start, rapid innovation pace, strong brand loyalty, and the founder still firmly in charge.
And the secret. What did Tesla understand that others missed?
The book suggests Tesla understood that much of the clean tech interest, especially among the wealthy, was driven by fashion and signaling, not just pure environmentalism. People wanted to look good and feel good about driving an electric car, but existing options like the Prius were seen as, well, clunky. Tesla built cars that were undeniably cool, desirable objects in their own right. The green aspect was a bonus. That was the hidden insight.
So Tesla's success doesn't mean clean tech was fundamentally flawed, just that most companies approached it wrongly.
Exactly. The world absolutely needs new energy solutions. Energy is fundamental. But building a successful business in energy requires the same focus on niche markets, unique technology, and sound business principles as any other sector.
It wasn't enough just to participate in an important sector.
No. The bubble formed because indefinite optimism met a vague social need without specific, viable business plans. The challenge for creating Energy 2.0, paradoxically, might be to think small. Initially find those specific niches where new energy tech offers a 10x solution today, and build out from there. 14. The founder's paradox and conclusion.
This brings us to the people at the very center of these ambitious ventures, the founders. And the book paints a pretty striking picture of the early PayPal team. Eccentric seems like an understatement.
Yeah. Building bombs, cryonics, escaping communist countries or trailer parks, they were certainly not your standard corporate types. It raises this question. Are successful founders inherently unusual people? Or do we just tend to remember and amplify the quirks of those who succeed?
Does it matter? Does being distinctive help or hurt?
The book suggests it's both. More powerful, but at the same time more dangerous. Having a unique, driven individual at the helm can be incredibly potent, but also carries risks.
It talks about an inverse normal distribution for founder traits.
Right. Instead of most people clustering around the average, a bell curve, founder traits often seem to cluster at the extremes. They might be simultaneously brilliant insiders and awkward outsiders, incredibly charismatic and intensely difficult, cash poor but paper rich.
And this perception gets amplified.
It becomes a cycle. Unusual people are drawn to founding companies, their actions seem more extreme because they're under a microscope, and the media loves to create these larger-than-life narratives. Think Richard Branson cultivating his daredevil image, or Sean Parker leaning into his hacker notoriety, even Lady Gaga crafting her bizarre persona. It's hard to tell where the genuine person ends and the strategic myth-making begins.
This isn't new, though. These extreme figures leading tribes or nations
Goes way back. Mythology is full of them. Founders who are both insiders and outsiders, lawmakers and lawbreakers, like Romulus founding Rome by killing his brother. These figures become focal points, vessels for public sentiment.
Praised when things go well, blamed when they go badly, like scapegoats.
Exactly. Primitive societies often use scapegoats, often figures who were somehow different or extreme to absorb collective anxiety and conflict. They were sometimes worshipped before being sacrificed. The book draws a provocative link. Every king was a living god, and every god a murdered king. Monarchies' roots might lie in managing these powerful, paradoxical figures.
And in modern America, celebrities fill that role, our royalty.
Elvis, Michael Jackson, worshipped, then often torn down. Britney Spears' public struggles, the 27 Club of musicians whose deaths cemented their legendary status. There's a pattern of intense adulation followed by equally intense scrutiny or tragedy.
And tech founders experience this too.
Definitely. Howard Hughes is a classic example. Brilliant innovator, record-setting aviator, obsessed with pushing boundaries, who then descended into obsessive isolation after accidents and public pressure. Became an object of pity.
Bill Gates too.
His arc is fascinating. Nerdy outsider becomes the ultimate insider, the world's richest man. Microsoft utterly dominates. Then the backlash. Antitrust lawsuits, being branded a monopolist bully. The legal battles distracted him. Microsoft stagnated relative to newcomers, and now he's primarily seen as a philanthropist. Scapegoated in a way, then redeemed through a different role.
But just as Gates was fading as the dominant tech figure, Steve Jobs returned.
And his return to Apple is presented as the ultimate proof of the irreplaceable value of a company's founder. Jobs, the artistic visionary, was kicked out. Apple nearly died, he returns, and orchestrates one of the most stunning turnarounds in business history with the iPod, iPhone, iPad.
It suggests these unique individuals really do matter.
The book argues strongly that they do. New tech companies, it suggests, often function more like feudal monarchies than modern bureaucracies. Founders make bold decisions, inspire intense loyalty, plan for the very long term in ways committees rarely can.
So the lesson for business, for society is?
We need founders. We should probably be more tolerant of their eccentricities, their extremes, because these unusual individuals are often the ones capable of pushing beyond incremental improvements.
But there's a lesson for founders, too.
Absolutely. Beware the myth. Prominence can easily curdle into destructive notoriety. Don't overestimate your own individual genius. Founders succeed by bringing out the best in their teams. Avoid that Ayn Randian trap of believing you're a solitary prime mover. The greatest danger for a founder is believing their own hype. The greatest danger for a business is losing that sense of possibility and mistaking disenchantment for wisdom.
So bringing it all together, what does this mean for the long-term future, beyond the next 20, 30 years?
The book looks at Nick Bostrom's 4 potential futures for humanity. Recurrent collapse seems unlikely now. A global plateau where everyone reaches current developed world levels seems unsustainable due to resource competition and likely conflict. That leaves 2 stark possibilities.
Extinction if conflict goes nuclear.
Or something radically different. Accelerating takeoff. The singularity. New technologies so powerful they change the game entirely, maybe beyond our current comprehension, like Kurzweil's super AI.
Kurzweil suggests the singularity is inevitable, just get ready.
But the book firmly rejects that passive stance. The future won't happen on its own. It requires deliberate action, definite plans.
It comes back to that core choice.
Nothing or something. We can't just assume progress will continue. We have to actively choose to build a better future. We need to work to create it today.
Everything important to us is singular. The universe, the planet, your life, this moment. Our task, then, is to find those unique, singular ways to create new things. To go from 0 to 1.
And the crucial first step. Think for yourself. See the world anew. Question convention. That's where it all begins. Outro.
Wow. We have covered a lot of ground today, really diving deep into this idea of creating something truly new, going from 0 to 1.
We have. We've looked at challenging conventional ideas about competition, about learning from the past, about the very nature of progress.
And explored why building a unique, enduring business of monopoly, in the book sense, isn't just about profit, but might be crucial for making real leaps forward.
Yeah, the core message that really comes through is the power of having a definite vision. A clear plan for a unique future and the conviction to build it, rather than just reacting or copying.
Being that last mover who masters the end game, not just the first one out of the gate.
Exactly. It's about intelligent design, not just random chance or iteration.
So as you, our listener, think about everything we've discussed today. Maybe revisit that contrarian question for yourself. What important truth do you know that very few people agree with you on?
And maybe more importantly, what new, valuable, singular thing could you build or help build based on that unique insight?
Because, as the book powerfully concludes, the future isn't just something that happens to us. It's something we create. The future is yours to design.